the WalkAway movement, and what that is to me. For that and more, stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Prosise Podcast.
And now Paul Prosise.
Hey guys, welcome in. I just want to first, right up front, say thank you so much for listening. You can find me anywhere on paulprosise.com. If you just Google anything, you can find me on Twitter, Parler, all those, Gab and Locals. Find me there, follow, and just help me get this word out. We are doing some amazing things. We have even reached a regular listener out in Australia. I can see that just because of the data that comes through. So I don't even know who these people are, but I just want to thank you for listening in. And I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, especially down in like Australia. There is some crazy, really draconian laws happening in the name of COVID, in the name of safety. I mean, checkpoints and massive $10,000 fines, especially in Australia. It's nuts. I mean, we thought that we were crazy here in the States. Just take a look around the world and how it's being used in a draconian way, in a just Kafka-esque. I mean, just very, just a crazy different way. But I see you. I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for joining in. And would you guys go to my Facebook page and join in on the conversation that's going on and just be a part of this? I just thank you guys for being so supportive. I mean, starting anything in the time of COVID is pretty difficult. I've got 3 kids that are here. Just being a regular content creator in this format is proving to be fairly difficult. In fact, if you hear a 3-year-old, it's because she refuses to be upstairs today. It's okay. She's just sitting watching the Kindle, and we may hear her on occasion today. So I want to talk about WalkAway. This is a fantastic movement that you're seeing a lot of Democrats move, or former Democrats or liberals saying, you know what, this Democrat platform is no longer me. This is not who I am, and I'm going to walk away. So we've seen rallies, and you have people like Carlin Barcinko, and just a whole lot of people doing this. Adam Krigler, and you see these people. There is this movement, and it rings similar to what I experienced. So I was always a lifelong Republican for a long time, and I've said that several times. And then came Obama in 2008, and obviously prior to that, and I had really ramped up my political activism and was doing the blog stuff, like I've said many times. So I did that, but once I got involved and started doing the things that we were told to do, that we, in order to make the change, get involved. And I did that. But here is what a lot of the people on the left are experiencing. I experienced, frankly, from the right, and I had my own walkaway movement. And I think that we need to acknowledge both sides of this idea. And I'll explain that, and I'll talk about why I walked away in the time of Trump, because we're seeing a lot right now, this walkaway movement that's happening, and it's awesome. Saying, you know what, we see what Trump's doing, we see his actions, and we're moving away from the extreme woke and the leftist that has taken over the party. And for many of almost the same reasons, I left the Republican Party going into the election year of Trump. I did not believe in Trump. In fact, a lot of the policies that he was saying, I just didn't like. I hate his demeanor. I don't like how he goes about doing things. I think that's on purpose sometimes. Partly, I think that's just who he is. So you get what you get with him, and I'm fine with that to an extent. I do think that the presidency needs to have more decorum and more statesmanship, and I think we're lacking in some of that. But more really where we see a lack of that is really when he's in confrontation with the media and that kind of stuff. What we don't see a lot of bad decorum when he's actually with another statesman. And that's just been my analysis through the last 4 years. But what I was seeing in the Republican Party specifically that led to my walkaway movement was this move to progressivism and just placating a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. That woke culture is really integrated into the RNC, and really was that you see the people that run the party is very, and now we've seen a little bit of a shift since Trump's come in, but they were becoming more and more pro-choice. They were becoming, there were a lot of them like the Bushes and all these people that have been around for a long time. Is a very progressive movement. And I had no faith in anything at that time as far as the party is concerned. My own experiences in working in either the party or within systems around the party, I saw, especially here in Colorado, there's this movement that happened, and there was the Tea Party movement. We were fired up. There was so many of us ready to go. And then what we met head on was the system that was already there. Now, I understand if you've been there, if you've been in a system for your whole life or 20, 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden this new movement comes in and saying, hey, we're going to make a difference. We're going to change the way. I understand the resistance, because isn't that how we act? That's human nature to resist change. And so I understand that. But when we would have conversations with these people, especially here in the counties that I was really working, I really worked with like kind of 2 or 3 counties. It's kind of been my area that I worked most with. There was this, not only just a resistance, but then I started looking at the policies they were pushing. They were pushing for actually more taxes. They were pushing for acceptable, how do we change the language to be whatever, or unwilling to put in position in the party people that had new ideas or that wanted to make change, and saying, you know what, your old way is not working. In fact, your old way led to Colorado becoming blue instead of a swing state. Colorado is a very liberal place now. A lot of reasons for that. There's some gerrymandering that's going on. We're going to talk about a book. It's called The Blueprint. Written by a man named Adam Schrager. He used to be a reporter here in the Denver area. And we're going to talk about this topic and how Colorado changed. There's a lot of gerrymandering that happened, and the power that our voice has in Colorado has been annihilated. We have a few people representing. Now the state is pretty 30-30-30. In fact, there's a little bit more unaffiliated voters than there are for the 2 parties, just as far as the registration is concerned. There's some reasons for that. One is there's almost no need for party system because you can vote in whatever primary you want. So what difference does it make if you belong to a particular party? I mean, that's kind of the attitude. And frankly, the parties on both sides in this state suck. But the problem is the left had a couple billionaires that spent insane amount of money, including the current governor, Jared Polis, who is insanely rich, and he put a lot of money into this. Hey, hon. Remember, Daddy's talking. See, I told you we would hear. So we need to have an honest conversation about that, and we're gonna spend a whole episode talking about how Colorado went, and really it's really going to be a warning to you if you're not involved, what the things that you need to look for and how things change. So we're going to talk about that. But so this was my experience as I'm running up against these guys that have been in the party system, that have all these political friends, that have the donors. So when you're coming in with a new movement, you don't really have those relationships. You don't know who to really talk to. And I talked a little bit about that. Hey, how did I start talking to people? But those guys were not fringe, but they were more on the outside. They were more liberty-minded people that I started hanging around. But the other people that were embedded and entrenched in a part of the party were party, rah, rah, rah. And frankly, when you start looking, like I said, when you start looking at their policies, they were very progressive, very big government, big spending. A lot of the Tea Party was like, hey, maybe we don't spend so much on the Department of Defense. Maybe we don't spend the insane amount of money on the Department of Education. Whereas a lot of the party guys were saying, hey, let's just keep feeding the monster. Let's keep the way that we are doing things. Let's just keep going with the flow. And we're saying, no, this isn't working. You are giving over authority to the other party, the far left, that's taking over the Democrats. You're just bowing down to them and allowing, hey. All right, so you guys just experienced a jump cut. That's because my 3-year-old was being crazy and loud. All right, so here's the deal. My problem with the Republican Party really has been it's a populist movement. And it really, if you look through the history, if you look at like George Bush Sr. and then into George Bush, and you just see this huge government push, more control, very progressive ideals. That is the party that I don't like and I did not want to be a part of. So I looked at all things, and frankly, when I started looking at the opportunist that Donald Trump is, I did not like what I was seeing. In fact, I was scared of his policies, and I went and I voted independent. I voted for Evan. The funny thing is I don't even remember those guy's last name. And there was some of my friends, we all left the party at the time, and we just said, we're not going to be affiliated with this anymore. So we had our own WalkAway movement. And my warning to the left, is when you come over, and if you are affiliating with the Republican Party or whatever, don't expect to make change within the system. Now, is that a nice hope? Sure. That's a good hope to have. But I would say that you need to have your hope and change moments, if I can borrow that hope and change, in the WalkAway movement. It needs to be in virtue. It needs to be in all the good things that we see in our country: faith, hope, freedom, love, all those things. Those are good virtues to stand on, but don't expect that from the Republican Party. Now, is the Republican Party more in line with where I see America needs to be? Yeah, kinda. The problem still is they're passing $25 billion things or $3 trillion bills that help us through COVID and all those things. And it has helped a lot of people, and it's helped a lot of businesses, all those things. I see the good that it did help. It helped maybe not shut everything down, but in principle, a lot of those things, I'm like, wait a second, we just spent how many trillions of dollars, and then how much of that was unfunded mandates that just we're going to be continuously funding in perpetuity. Like, how many of those things that we don't even know that was in that bill because they got jammed through so quickly? Those are the kind of things that scare me very much. And I don't like that about the Republican Party, that they just placated to this instead of saying there needs to be accountability with this. Where's all this money going? Because it's being rushed through very quickly, and we're seeing that. So it is scary for me when I start seeing movements like WalkAway, that they'll be co-opted by a party that does not really care about them, but they want the movement. Now, what we're also seeing is that WalkAway is not being completely welcomed with open arms. There is a reason for that. One, because a lot of the left that are leaving the Democrat Party still have very liberal ideology. And so there is that kind of this like, ho, wait up. Are you going to be pushing for liberal ideals within the Republican Party? And that my personal opinion is they already exist in the Republican Party. Not that I'm like this crazy conservative guy, but I do like my viewpoint is first founded by Scripture, the Holy Bible, what I believe. Jesus is the King. I've talked about that many times. So when we are seeing movements, we need to welcome them and have conversations and say, hey, these are the 100 things that I agree with you on. There might be one or two things that let's go ahead and agree to disagree, but we can be civil about it. And that's what I love about the WalkAway movement, because it allows me to have a conversation with the people that I may not have had a conversation with because I wouldn't have been open to it maybe, or they wouldn't have been open to have a conversation with me. And we see that like the PragerU thing that Carlin did. There's a lot of really good things in there. It came to realize that the Republican Party, the majority of the people that are there, and I'm talking about just the guy across the street that has been a lifelong Republican, not racist, not all those, they had this aha moment like, oh, they're not bad people. I should stop listening to the media. And so I just want you guys to have a realistic expectation going in of the WalkAway saying, hey, Republican Party, look at us, look at us. So part of when that happens, when these kind of movements happen, they're good things because it starts to hold accountable the people, the people of the Democrat Party and people of the Republican Party. The problem with that is there's always going to be an Overton window shift when that happens. And so when we look around and we see that Overton window shift from more of a conservative mindset, and then they move over to accept the ideology of the left that's moving in, then there's an uncomfortable and almost an abandonment of the people that were fairly staunch in saying, hey, maybe we do need to stand up for life issues. Maybe we do need to stand up for, we're for women's rights, but we're not for me paying for those women's rights out of my own pocket for somebody else, those kind of things. And that's a very liberal idea. And so there's just a caution that tends to come in with these things. So my own WalkAway movement was because I did not trust the Republican Party any longer. And I really did not trust Trump coming in. And I had a big problem with just a lot of things around that. Now, here's the deal. I've still not decided who I'm going to vote for. I know who I'm not going to vote for. And maybe we can have an episode on that topic. But I've still not decided where I'm going to place because I'm looking at what I watched the RNC. I was not going to watch the RNC. I watched some of the DNC, and I was not going to watch the RNC. But here's some of the things that came out from it for me, is that there was a large voice of saying who they're for and what they're for, despite what the media is spinning around. The reality is they said that they were for the voters. They were for getting the country moving again. They were for good solutions for COVID. They were for these things. In contrast, the DNC was all about what you don't like. In fact, my last episode, I talked about that being more about people need to know what you're for rather than what you're against. We all know that we're against, big Orwellian, draconian, fascistic things that are coming from the far left. We get that. We're against that. But what are we for? Are we actually for freedom? Are we for less taxes? Are we for those things? And frankly, if I'm being really honest, those things came from the RNC, and they became more about what they're for rather than what they're against. So they did talk about the things that they were against. They're against the Antifa movement that's going on. They're against the riots. They're against the draconian mandates surrounding the COVID mask stuff that's going on. I mean, for Pete's sake, even in up in the Northeast, you're seeing governors wonder aloud if you should put a cone thing on waiters and waitresses. What the hell is that? I mean, seriously, come on, guys. That is ridiculous. We can't allow those things to keep going on. It's demeaning, it's demoralizing, it's dehumanizing. We've got to stand up and say no more of that. That is ridiculous. But the problem is that that's not who my audience is. That's not who you guys are. I can get you riled up and talk about that in nauseam. But what you guys need to be aware of is that we are experiencing a movement from people that don't have a home anymore. And we need to welcome these people with open arms, but we also need to say, hey, we're going to agree on these things and disagree on these things. And let's move forward together on these 100 issues that we agree on. There just happens to be a few things that we're not going to ever, I'm never going to agree with you that we should have pro-choice ever. In fact, we are planning an episode that is going to talk all about that. I'm going to have experts on the subject. I'm going to have experts talking about the abortion after pill. The abortion pill, and I'm going to have the after abortion pill, the reversal pill. I'm going to have an expert in talking about that. We're going to have really good conversations, and I encourage you to stay tuned for that. It's going to be an awesome episode. It's taking a lot of planning. I'm making sure that we are crossing all of our T's, that everything is scientifically based, and that we are doing the right thing in presenting this information to you. So I wanted to do it a few weeks ago, but I decided, you know what? I really want to make sure that this is really good information, that we have the right studies, and that we move this in a really good, positive way. So please make sure that you are staying tuned for that. So we can have our own walkaway movements. In fact, I would encourage you not to put ever your faith in a party. But what we are seeing is that one side is saying, these are what I'm for, and the things that I'm against are bad, very bad. And the things that I'm for are good foundational principles. We're not going to tear down the statues. We're not going to erase history through the 1619 Project. We're not going to allow this kind of nonsense to happen. So you're seeing that say, hey, I'm for good teaching and I'm against bad teaching. The other side is orange man bad. That's almost all you heard through the whole DNC. It was stupid. It was just bad presentation. And frankly, the other side, and I've talked about this, I do filmmaking. I pay attention to those things. I love the way things are presented. Frankly, the RNC did a much better job at that too. So we've got more things coming, and I encourage you to be a part of it. Guys, find me on my website, paulprosise.com. I'd love for you to be involved. And here's the thing. We're not going to get it right every single time. I'm not going to get everything right, but we're going to continue to move forward. That's the thing. I can walk away from a movement and say, or a party and say, this is not who I'm represented by, but we continue to move forward and continue to try to do better. That's what I'm encouraging you to be. Find me on Paul Prosise. Guys, my name is Paul Prosise. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Facebook. Find me on everywhere. Find me on YouTube, especially on YouTube. You guys have a great day. Bye.